The key takeaway from today's core concept video is that strategy is implemented through projects. As a consequence, every project should have a clear link to the organisation's strategy. Not all strategy textbooks or courses make this link explicit, but they should. I would argue that every major project that an organisation does must have a strong link to the overall organisation's goals and objectives. Failure to do this can result in focusing on problems with a low strategic priority, focusing on the immediate customer concerns rather than what's happening in the whole marketplace, an overemphasis on technology instead of meeting customer need, and engaging in a never-ending search for perfection on projects instead of timely project delivery. So in this short video, I'm going to summarise how project strategy fits into the wider organisational strategy. Then I will introduce a very helpful model to establish whether or not your organisation is doing the right projects. And finally, I will list some key strategic questions that you should ask before launching any project or programme. So here's one view of how strategy is formulated in organisations. It's a very rational instrumentalist view that organisational strategy is planned in advance rather than being much more emergent. But stick with me for the moment, as it is a helpful way of understanding the link between project and organisational strategy. It's also fairly typical of how organisations try to set strategies. For those of you, though, who are not convinced that strategy can be planned in any way, shape or form, then I would point you to Henry Mintzberg and his writings on strategy as an emergent process. In particular, his seminal text, The Rise and Fall of Strategic Planning. However, for the rest of us, this chart shows the 3 key steps that organisations go through when determining their future strategic objectives. First, they take a long, hard look at where they are now. By reviewing their mission, their reason for being, scanning the external environment for opportunities or threats, and looking at their own internal competencies and limitations. This enables the organisation to set some goals and objectives. The new goals and objectives will help the organisation know what it intends to do and result in a portfolio of strategic alternatives that the organisation will have. These alternatives can then be compared, allowing strategies to be selected that move the organisation closer to its goals and objectives. As a recent example, the Chinese nuclear industry is keen to showcase its reactor technology to the Western world. Its goal is to sell more reactors to countries like the United Kingdom. To move closer to this goal, China General Nuclear is part financing the construction of one of the new nuclear power stations in the United Kingdom, Hinkley Point C, having received assurances from the UK government that it can build another reactor, a new reactor, at a United Kingdom location, probably Bradwell, using its own reactor technology. Once the strategy has been selected, it must then be implemented, and this is often achieved using the vehicle of projects. So a portfolio of projects is selected to be implemented as the means by which the organisation will achieve its strategic objectives. These projects must then be resourced, prioritised and funded to enable them to be delivered within the required organisational timeframes. Conversely, organisations are unlikely to resource projects properly and manage them effectively if they are not aligned to delivering an element of corporate strategy, whether it's to do with introducing new products, improving efficiencies, or maintaining market share. So there are 3 main problems that can arise when projects are not aligned with corporate strategy. The first of these is the implementation gap, a disconnect, if you like, where senior managers set strategy and functional managers implement it. This disconnect leads to unclear priorities, resource misallocation, and decision-making at the project level that does not take into account the higher level strategic objectives. The second problem is one of organisational politics, where project selection is based on individual power and preference rather than facts and strategic goals. This can lead to pet projects being pursued. and/or important strategic projects lacking the requisite high-level project sponsors to drive them forward. The final problem is that of resource conflicts and multitasking. Too many projects competing for the same resource leads to overload, inefficiency and conflict, a stressful environment for project managers and their teams. Another helpful way of looking at whether organisations are doing the right projects is shown in this model by one of the godfathers of project management, Professor Peter Morris. It's from his book, Reconstructing Project Management, which I would wholeheartedly recommend that you read at least once during your studies here at the University of Manchester. This slide illustrates two levels of project management. Firstly, are we doing the project right? This concerns the right-hand side of the model, the project delivery, and managing scope, time and budget to produce the right outcomes. However, there is a much broader question that also needs to be asked. And this provides the all-important link with project strategy. Namely, are we doing the right projects? Do all our projects align with the strategic and financial goals of the organisation? Are they technologically aligned, commercially appropriate, and organisationally doable? These are high-level strategic questions that need to be addressed when considering adding new projects to an existing portfolio. Finally, this last slide proffers a quick checklist of simple but profound questions to ask of any project to assess its fit to corporate strategy. As project managers, I would urge you not to be scared of asking these questions of any future project that you are asked to be involved with. So, does the project take advantage of our core competencies? Does the project exploit our competitive advantage? Does the project match customers' needs? Or does the project fit within our acceptable risk range? Be wary of managing or working on projects that cannot answer yes to at least one of these questions, as you will likely be plagued by resource conflicts, low prioritisation and lack of senior management support during its implementation. Not a recipe for a happy project manager.